Hello, my dear student. Today is the second day of our lecture. We were actually doing various modes of nutrition. So today we are going to continue the same chapter, that is life process, and the topic is nutrition. But in today's lecture, we will see that how autotrophic mode in case of plant is being practiced. So we are going to mainly focus on the process and mechanism behind the so-called process by which plant prepare its food material, that is photosynthesis. So in this slide you can see the definition of photosynthesis. Before going into the definition, I just want to tell you that, my dear student, it's not the class 9, 8 or class 7 definition that you are sticking with right from the beginning. It's high time and you should come to know exactly what the definition of photosynthesis means actually. So right from the beginning you have been taught that plant consumes CO2 and gives oxygen. So what is the purpose of this? So this CO2 which is being consumed by plant is actually converted into C6H12O6, that is called as sugar, and that sugar will be utilized by plant itself, as the sugar is food material for the plant. So in photosynthesis, first of all, you should understand it is a light dependent process. It is not light independent, because anyhow to complete in order to start the process of photosynthesis, light is actually being required. So it is a photobiological process in which light energy is converted into chemical energy, and this is actually done by converting CO2 into C6H12O6, that is sugar. You can also say that it's a process in which light energy is converted into chemical energy, in which CO2 is reduced into sugar with the help of water, enzyme, chloroplast, etc. Now, as the process itself describes, that it actually needs light for the process to initiate, and in other part of reaction light is not required. So the entire process of photosynthesis is not that simple as it looks. The complete process of photosynthesis is actually divided into two phases. Phase 1 is actually called as light reaction, or you can say light dependent reaction, and this part of reaction takes place in chloroplast itself. But you should always remember this light reaction takes place in the thylakoid part of the chloroplast, because chloroplast has two important parts, that is thylakoid and stroma. So thylakoid basically are the coin like structure which actually gets clumped together and forms a group. This group is called as granum, and one thylakoid is actually connected with the other thylakoid with the help of lamellar network is there in order to connect one thylakoid to the other thylakoid. And it is this thylakoid which is a membrane bound structure inside which chlorophyll pigment is present, and that is called as chlorophyll. Actually it's a pigment molecule, it's a green colored pigment molecule responsible for giving green color to the plant, and it is due to this pigment light is being trapped for the plant so that it can initiate the process. So light energy basically is absorbed and converted into chemical energy. In phase 1, that is light dependent reaction, light energy is converted into chemical energy, and this chemical energy contains two important things, and these are energy rich compound. One is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the other one is NADPH, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide hydrogen. So these two energy currency together, they are also known as assimilatory power. So these assimilatory power is actually required for the synthesis of food material by the plant. Just assume one thing, if it is getting complex, I'm just making it easy for you. Imagine that how inside your house there is a specific area where food is being prepared, and that area is called as kitchen. So in that kitchen, in order to prepare food material, two things are very much important. One is fuel, that is energy, the other one is raw material. And once the fuel is given to the raw materials, definitely you are going to cook the food and nicely, and you have a nice day. So in a very similar way, for plants, leaf are considered as kitchen house, and the energy which is actually being required for synthesis of food material is ATP and NADPH. Now, before preparation of the food, the energy is prepared first, and that is called as assimilatory power, which is a chemical form of energy. Now this assimilatory power, that is ATP and NADPH, is prepared in phase 1 reaction of photosynthesis, and that is called as light reaction. So if somebody asks you that where ATP and NADPH of photosynthesis or phase 1 reaction of photosynthesis uh, is prepared, then answer is thylakoid part. So it is always thylakoid where light reaction takes place, and this process only inside thylakoid ATP and NADPH is prepared. Now once this ATP NADPH is prepared, that is called as assimilatory power, which is triggering power, it will trigger phase 2 reaction. That is also known as light independent reaction. It does not require light. If light is present, definitely it is not going to use that light. So this reaction goes during daytime also. So that's why it is called as dark reaction, that is light independent reaction. And this part of reaction takes place in stroma. So what it does, it is going to use ATP and NADPH produced during light reaction and convert CO2 into glucose. So for converting CO2 into glucose, plant has to fix CO2 first, and for fixing CO2 it is going to use stomata, because stomata is the most important structure inside plant, which is responsible for gaseous exchange, in which carbon dioxide and oxygen, the two chief or the important gases which are exchanged during the process. And during photosynthesis, CO2 is actually fixed inside plant from environment through these minute openings, that is known as stomata. As you can see in this slide, a very beautiful diagram of chloroplast is there, which actually is showing two important part and portion of chloroplast. One is granum part, which you can see labeled as number 1. It is a coin-like structure forming a stack, and this complete package is known as granum. Our single unit is known as thylakoid. So don't get confused. Now in this thylakoid only light reaction is taking place, while the other part of chloroplast basically is actually shown as a stroma part. Number 2 is a stroma part, inside which dark reaction takes place. So this Calvin cycle written here is actually dark reaction going on. Calvin cycle denotes dark reaction. So these two parts are actually connected to each other, and two important happenings are going separately. In case of granum, that is thylakoid, a light reaction is taking place in presence of sunlight. H2O is being required for this process, and plant is going to prepare assimilatory power. See this beautiful diagram. It is connecting light reaction. Due to light reaction in chloroplast, part of the important part which is shown here is granum, is producing ATP and NADPH, which is assimilatory power. Now during light reaction, these two things are being prepared. Now after this, ATP and NADPH is consumed in dark reaction. It will trigger dark reaction, and what happens during dark reaction in stroma, CO2 will be fixed by plant, and this is going to get reduced into sugar. So finally the purpose of dark reaction is to prepare food material. So without light reaction you cannot imagine about dark reaction. So light reaction is the initial step of photosynthesis, which is completed in dark reaction once food is prepared. In this slide you can see the factors affecting photosynthesis. There are a wide range of factors that can affect photosynthesis. Some important factors have been listed here. So the first factor that you can see in the slide is light intensity. So increase in intensity of light will actually increase the rate of photosynthesis, and vice versa. The second important factor is CO2 concentration. Higher concentration of CO2 will lead to increase in rate of photosynthesis. Definitely CO2 is the important factor, where CO2 gets converted into C6H12O6. So without CO2 you cannot imagine about preparation of food material, that is sugar. So concentration of CO2 is equally important. So at least the amount which is required for synthesis or for process of photosynthesis to continue uh, demands 300 to 400 ppm of carbon dioxide in range. At least this much amount should be present. uh, a higher amount will actually be considered uh, to increase the rate of photosynthesis. Next important factor that affects photosynthesis is temperature. As you all know that temperature has got a wide impact on the activity of enzyme. Definitely photosynthesis is also not a process which will take place without enzyme. Definitely this process will require enzyme, and there are variety of enzymes which actually operate and function during photosynthesis inside plant, especially in chloroplast. So for efficient execution of photosynthesis, it is important to have temperature range between 25 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. It is this temperature range under which the suitable function of enzyme actually will be carried out, and once this is done, the process of photosynthesis will continue in a proper way. Next important factor is water. As water, you can see, is an important factor in photosynthesis. Its deficiency can lead to problem in intake of carbon dioxide. The scarcity of water leads to refusal of stomatal opening and retain the amount of water they have stored inside. So basically, water is again very important. As water is utilized during the process of photosynthesis, it is also utilized by stomata for opening of the guard cell, and once guard cell will not open, definitely CO2 is not going to come inside plant, and if CO2 is not going to come inside plant, definitely plant is not going to perform photosynthesis. So in one way or either way, you can connect water and show its necessity, that what are the important things that it can do for photosynthesis. So water is very important factor, without which there can be no imagination about photosynthesis in plant. The next important factor is pollution. Industrial pollutants and other particulate, they may settle over stomata and can close the stomata. Once stomatal opening is closed, it will affect the rate of photosynthesis. My dear student, this is the last slide which I am showing to you. This include structure of stomata, a beautiful diagram of stomata. On your left side, you can see the various parts of stomata. That includes the outermost part, that is the outermost part of the plant, that is called as epidermal part. Now inside epidermal part, you can see the placement of stomata, which has got different structures. The outermost structure of stomata is subsidiary cell. Inside subsidiary cell, you can see a bean shaped structure. In some plant, it also is represented as dumbbell shaped structure. These are guard cells. Now it is opening of these guard cell and closing of these guard cells which will affect the gaseous exchange. In the middle, you can see, since guard cell is opening, a pore is being created, so this is termed as stomatal pore. In the next part of the diagram, you can see different labelings of stomata. Where stomata is closed, you can see the different structures of stomata. Number 1 has been depicted as nucleus. Number 2 is chloroplast. Number 3 is vacuole. Number 4 is guard cell. While number 5 is cell wall. So please consider these diagrams and slides into your mind, and go through it again and again, so that the concept should get clear inside your head. And at the very same time, also giving you worksheets to perform in your house during lockdown situation. Please go through it very nicely, my dear students, and have a nice day. Thank you.